The session is being recorded. We are still on the introductory part of English for specific purposes, and in the class, we did all the three characteristics. Um, you know, can someone just revise the characteristics for us very, very quickly so that we can move to the next section, which is complementing and competing approaches to ESP. Who's telling us three characteristics of ESU very, very quickly without wasting any time, because so much time has already been wasted in getting connected. Okay, I can hear someone is switching on the mic. Can we have? Oh, Aisha Saad, are you here? Good to see you here. I don't see you in the classes. Yes, Aisha. What are the three characteristics? Guys, very, very quickly, please. Aska is here and Farhana is here. Quickly tell me the three characteristics so that we can move forward. You can still go to the chat section. Yes, someone is raising her hand. Uh, Ji beta.
Mm, it's it's me, Ashmal, ma'am.
Yes, Ashmal. What are the three characteristics? Very, very quickly. You are read me here, not Ashmal. Okay, that's nice. Okay, quickly.
Ma'am, first, it's student-centered.
Yes.
Second is multidisciplinary
And
and need analysis.
need analysis where practice becomes more important than theory. That's very nice. Okay, other than that, I gave you a task. I'm not revising the task right now, but I'm just giving it to you. You need to complete it on your own. That is on page 18 if you have opened your books. Understanding the characteristic features of ESP. For this task, you need to revise the three characteristics that Ashmal has just elaborated on. Aisha, we are done with that part. I think there's some problem with your connection. You left the meeting and then you have rejoined. Okay, fine. Maybe I'll be asking you another question. Okay. So next is complementing and competing approaches to ESP. As I told you in the very beginning, while we were defining English for specific purposes, that it is defined as an approach to language teaching. It is one of the methods, and it takes up eclectic approach. So when we put it as a part of applied linguistics, that it is one of the methods or one of the approaches to teach English as a second language. Uh, we need to compare and contrast it with other approaches. Some of the methods and the approaches, they complement ESP. Complementing means they are similar to ESP and they complete ESP. And we already know that ESP is an eclectic approach, and there is a lot of flexibility as far as the methods are concerned, and it is really up to the teachers which method they take up and what content do they teach. Okay, teacher has a lot of authority and autonomy as far as ESP is concerned. So getting back to the methods that actually complement, in other words, they are similar or they complete ESP, meaning thereby that many of the characteristics or many of the strategies, many of the contents can be taken from these approaches that we are going to read now, because they complement ESP and they are similar also to ESP. Okay, so the first one that we would be looking at, I've been referring to this approach every now and then, but we have not studied it in detail. This is called as task-based language teaching or task-based language learning. Okay. Um, task-based language teaching is one of the methods, right? And when I say method, it means that it has been researched on, and these methods, I'm repeating again that these are not just randomly developed. All of these methods are research based, and these teaching methods, actually, language teaching methods lie in a continuum, within a continuum, okay, from the oldest to the most, modern methods. ESP is one of the most modern methods, and then very near to a ESP is the communicative language teaching and the task-based language learning or task-based language teaching is not very far away from ESP. That means it is also one of the modern methods. Now, what happens? What are the similarities between ESP and task-based language learning, and why do we call is it as a method that complements ESP? The reason is, the first thing is, it is also student-centered. Okay, it is also multidisciplinary, and it is also a practical method like ESP. Okay, so all the three characteristics that we have just referred to, and Ashmal has revised it for you, are all part of task-based language teaching. Okay, now this method was developed in 1980s, and as the name indicates task based. That means it is a very practical kind of methods, and different tasks are performed in order to learn the language, right? Now, what are these tasks? These are real world tasks. Okay, now what do I mean by real world tasks? What are real world tasks? What do you think? What is your guess? I'm not looking for an accurate answer, but what might be real world tasks? What do you do with language in real world when the goals are non-linguistics? Yes, Aisha, what are real world tasks?
When we communicate with others,
Uh-huh. And what tasks do we do actually? Communication so is a linguistic task. And we have already done that we do non-linguistic tasks using language. Yes, Aisha. What are real world tasks?
and what exactly do we mean by non-linguistic?
Non-linguistic tasks when the target is not learning the language, but we do a task with the help of the language. When language learning or language teaching is actually not the target. Okay, जैसे ESP में
Ma'am,
ESP is with a specific goal. Yes, who's that?
ma'am, ma'am, has we discussed in our class that non-linguistic needs, but with linguistic comprehend that,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
example,
yeah.
like a pilot don't really need to learn the specific language, but it is his need to understand that field.
You're a bit right, but okay. Right now we are talking about real world tasks. Why do you need language to do some of the tasks? For instance, um, and here uh, we are looking at using English to accomplish those tasks. Okay, you need to have a different context here. We are not in the Pakistani context right now. We are, for instance, you imagine an immigrant who is living abroad, and what are his, non-linguistic needs that he needs to fulfill linguistically. Now, for instance, booking a ticket. Okay, talking to a seller. You are a buyer, the other person is a seller, and you need to bargain. Okay, this is real world task. How to get things done? How would you communicate with people who are working with you to get tasks done? This is a real world task. Okay, bargaining is a real world task. Greeting is a real world task. Uh, Getting the communication. Okay. Um, avoiding communication breakdowns is a real world task, right? Uh, Conflict resolutions is a real world task, right? Now, what happens in this method, these are also, goal oriented methods of language teaching. Both English for specific purposes has a particular goal in mind. Okay, whosoever is teaching and learning through ESP. These task based language teaching and task based language learning are designed on a set of tasks that a person might need in the real world. That is why these are called as real world tasks. Okay, so that is why this task based language teaching or task based language learning is called as a complementing approach for ESP. Is this clear? The real world tasks and how task based language learning is similar and complementing ESP. Is it clear? Please raise your hands if this is clear. Okay, right. To many of the people, this is clear, right? So I told you that language teaching methods lie on a continuum, from the very old ones like language grammar translation methods to the newer ones, for instance, communicative language teaching to eclectic approach to ESP, and somewhere between these lie task-based language teaching. Now, task-based language teaching um, is in another way similar to ESP because it is an extension of communicative language teaching. Okay, uh, ESP is also an extension. I mean, it comes after communicative language teaching, and communicative language teaching is one of the most modern methods in language teaching. Okay, after communicative language teaching, there is just one method, that is eclectic approach, and this eclectic approach is the basis of ESP. Okay, so I hope this connection is clear uh, between communicative language teaching, task based language teaching, and ESP. Okay, all of these are modern methods, all of these make use of the target language alone. All of these are uh, for the purpose of communication, basically. Communication is the goal, and to achieve that one goal of communication, different tasks are designed, and the content is related to the real world tasks. Okay, it is just not the random teaching in the classrooms, it is just not teaching of grammar in or language in isolation. When I say teaching of language in isolation, I mean that teaching language without a context. Okay, how language is taught in a context? Now, to answer that question, I would refer to real world task. How language is taught in a real context? Yes, who's going to answer that? How language is taught in a real context? Yes, Mahin. How language is taught in a real context? Should I put this question in the chat? How language is taught out of context and how language is taught in real world context? Language. Yes. You can either go to your chat or you can raise your hands and answer this question very, very quickly. Yes. Um, where is Mahin? Mahin, are you there? Ashmal, Aisha,
Ma'am,
anyone?
am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, you are audible.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible, Mahin. To
Yes,
me, you are
ma'am. Can you
audible.
repeat the question, please?
I'm asking, what is the difference between language teaching in context and language teaching out of context?
Well, if I think that in a real context, it will be like teaching from the example of real life situations such as shopping, going to market, or a restaurant, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And
Using
out
it
of
effectively
context?
is like a
Yeah,
practical
yeah,
communication, yes.
you're right. And out of
And
context?
out of context will be like an isolated approach that focuses on grammar particularly rather than real life situations.
Uh, yeah, you are right. Right? So there are methods for both teaching of language in context and teaching of long language out of context. The primitive methods or the older methods, or when the methods started to be developed in language teaching, those were the methods which were almost out of context. And initial methods that I keep on naming are the grammar translation methods, where language is taught in isolation, in chunks. Sometimes one part of grammar is taught. For instance, tenses are taught, and then at other time, voices are taught, active voice and passive voice. Then in isolation, speech is taught, a direct speech and indirect speech. That is, teaching of language not in context. There is no real context. Separate 10 sentences are taught to you, and you are asked to convert them either from present tense to past tense, or active voice to passive voice, or direct speech to indirect speech. It has nothing to do with the real world task. It would not help you uh, later on in performing communicative functions, basically. So, as the teaching and learning of English became modern, we moved from um, out of context teaching to in context teaching, and from grammar to communication. That is why I've told you that communicative language teaching is one of the modern methods, and it aligns well with ESP. Okay, and uh, the method that we are discussing today that complements ESP, which is task based language teaching, uh, is an extension of the same communicative language teaching. Okay, because it attempts to connect the language practice in the classrooms with the real world. And why do we do that? Because we actually want the students to, and we actually make the student, or we actually prepare the students to use the language outside the classrooms, just not for the academic purposes, for the occupational purposes also. And that is why we make use of real world tasks. Okay, so it is focused, and it contains information. In task based language learning, we teach reasoning, we teach students to have their opinion, and we teach students to express their opinion. Okay, we teach students negotiations, how to negotiate, and all of these tasks are designed to have a clearly non-linguistic outcomes. Okay, by now you know what are non-linguistic outcomes and what are non-linguistic goals. Now, shopping is not a linguistic goal. You don't shop to achieve linguistic goals, right? Okay, you book an airline ticket. This is a non-linguistic goal. You are using language to reach that goal, which is non-linguistic, but your primary purpose is not just to use language. आप शॉपिंग लैंग्वेज यूज के लिए नहीं करते, ठीक है? आप एयरलाइन के टिकट्स बुक इसलिए नहीं करते आपकी लैंग्वेज इंप्रूव हो जाए. आपके ये वाले गोल्स, दीज आर नॉन लिंग्विस्टिक गोल्स. यू आर यूजिंग लैंग्वेज टू अचीव अ गोल which is non-linguistics, and we have ample example, professional examples also, to elaborate on what are these non-linguistic outcomes or what are these non-linguistic goals, right? So another similarity between task-based language teaching and ESP is that their goals are non-linguistic. Language is taught to achieve non-linguistic goals or non-linguistic outcomes. Okay, so these are The similarity, that is why we call as TBLT. This is the abbreviation of task-based language teaching. It sometimes overlaps ESP in many ways. Okay, overlaps means it is similar to ESP. Sometimes people confuse ESP with TBLT, uh, and TBLT is also used for professional purposes as well as academic purposes. Now, when we say that ESP instructors have a lot of autonomy and they have a lot of flexibility as far as in the selection of methods of teaching or material that is used for teaching, so they may consider TBLT activities. Okay. Now, what activities should those be? Uh, those should be based on learners' needs. Those should target learners' need. That is the first characteristic or the first requirement of ESP, that it is need based. Okay. Now, ESP instructors should develop the necessary language skills for a particular academic or occupational setting, and that would help learners to practice language skills in authentic or near authentic situations, that is real world situations, or sometimes near real world situations. We cannot exactly say that what kind of situations our students may encounter when they go outside the classrooms, and what would be their linguistic needs. I mean, we know 90% of the times why what would be the needs of the students, as far as I'm talking about ESP, okay, English for specific purposes. I'm just not talking about the common teaching of English as a second language that goes on in the classrooms. Okay, as we teach English here, maybe when we are teaching you functional English or expository writing, we do not have certain goals in mind, and we are not really focused how the knowledge that you are acquiring through these courses would help you in real life situations or outside the classrooms. Okay, we do not know. That's not the target. That is sometimes not in our mind even when we are teaching you that. But as far as ESP is concerned or TBLT is concerned, all the activities are designed for authentic or near authentic situations. You know, and in workplace ESP settings, TBLT activities are appropriate because the learners, we know that these are recognizable tasks, and these are needed for our students to be successful at their jobs. Okay. Now, while we are teaching you through other methods or the English teaching that takes place in our classrooms, we do not know what professions you would join. Okay. But in ESP, we actually know. Uh, the group of students that is usually taken for ESP is similar professionally. They have similar professional needs or occupational needs, or even sometimes they have similar academic needs also, right? So that is why when a language teacher who is teaching English for specific purposes, they can take a lot of help from TBLT. Now, when we say that TBLT can be a part of ESP, that means TBLT has a particular content. Okay, whosoever opts for this method, task based language teaching, can get a lot of content. आप कभी भी Google करें what can be the activities in TBLT. Google will give you a lot of activities. Okay, and if you are teaching through TBLT, so there are a lot of activities that are present, but these activities would be picked. Those activities would be chosen for ESP, which are goal oriented, which fulfills the need of your particular specific students. Now, all TBLT activities cannot be a part of ESP, right? But a lot of activities can be, because actually TBLT is also it also targets the real world situations. Okay. Now, another variation of TBLT is PBL, which is problem based learning. Okay. This is another approach that complements ESP, problem based learning. Now, what might be problem based learning? Just a guess. What is your guess? What might be problem based learning? And if I ask you one of the tasks that you can pick for problem based learning, a TBLT task, a real world task, which can be taught through problem based learning. What might be problem based learning or problem based teaching? Yes, very quickly, guys. If you
Like
are
ma'am,
there,
bargaining.
who's this? Is this Mahin again?
No, ma'am, it's me, Aisha Sad.
Yes,
Ma'am,
Aisha.
like bargaining can be one of the, which is similar in, which can come in both of the
Uh-huh.
cases.
You are right. Or what else? What can be other problem based tasks? That is a problem and can be solved through language. Yes, Mahin. I want more students,
Um,
guys.
Ma'am,
Yes,
can we
Mahin.
say like plastic waste in universities and environmental problems, so we can present a representation or a campaign, or through communication we can solve this problem.
Mm, that is a practic. This the solution to this problem, I would say, are some practical steps actually, not the
Okay.
language. Okay.
Ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am, can we say that the problem-based learning is learning by solving realistic problems or like real-life problems? For
Uh,
example, if a
what
tour,
are those?
if for example, if we have to guide a tourist, um, if anyone needs help, right? If he's lost or anything, so giving directions or answering questions or asking them questions, can
You are
this
very
be
right.
like?
You are very much right. If you are teaching students from the field of tourism, this is very much a relevant kind of a task that can be taught in the classrooms, problem, and that comes in problem solving also. Okay. For instance, budgeting is also, a real life task. You give students and ask them, you have to, this is the amount of money that is being given to you, and you have to perform different things, and how would you budget for these? Okay. Shira, do you want to say something? You're raising your hand.
Ma'am, we can say that it is a fixing a workplace issues.
हाँ जिसमें it can be, conflict resolution is one of the tasks that can be resolved through the use of language. This can also come in, problem based language learning. Okay. Now, problem based language learning is also a complementing approach or a complementing teaching method or a similar method to ESP. It has all those characteristics that we have begun with. It is student centered. Problem based language learning is student centered, okay, or learner centered approach in which learners work, they actively work and they collaborate with each other. It is multidisciplinary also, okay. For instance, budgeting is a field of finance, but all the students need to budget, okay. It's a real world situation, and it's a real world task also. You also need to budget whatever money you're getting. You have to pay your fee, you have to bear your cafeteria expenses, all of that. So that's a real world task. It is multidisciplinary also. um, Conflict resolution, maybe a part of psychology, but it is, uh, taught through problem based learning, right? So problem based learning is student centered or learner centered, it is goal oriented, and what else, it is multidisciplinary, right? It can be taught through activities or tasks, so it is similar to task based learning, therefore it is also similar to ESP. Okay. And then it can, you can give bigger projects also. Problem based language learning and project based learning are almost similar, the level is different. Okay. uh, Problem based learning is narrower and project based learning is broader, and problem based learning may be taught at a different level, and project based learning is taught at an advanced level. Okay, but both of the approaches are almost similar, right? Now, uh, we are done with the two approaches that complement ESP. One is TBLT, okay, task based language teaching. The other is PBL, problem based language learning, problem based learning, or project based learning, PBL. The this so kya kehte hain? It's not an acronym, it's an abbreviation. Yeah, the abbreviation is similar, PBL, but they are different. One is problem based learning and the other is project based learning, right? Anyway, both of them are almost similar, only the level and one being narrow, the other being broader. One is maybe uh, initial, the other is advanced. Otherwise, both are task based also, and they can be used in ESP. So remember that there are two major approaches that complement, that complete, or they are similar to ESP. One is TBLT and the other is PBL. Okay. Now, let's come to the approaches that are different from ESP, and uh, by competing approaches, we do not mean that they actually have any competition with ESP, but they are a little different. Okay. One of those is content based instructions. Okay, I've already told you, and the abbreviation is CBI, content based instructions, right? Which is also called as sometimes as English medium instructions. What is content based language teaching or content based instructions? Quickly.
Like, ma'am, content as that of the books, like the course of
Or
the syllabus.
yeah, you are right. Or yes, Saima.
Ma'am, when we learn English from content of different subjects.
Yeah, that we have already done, and this is nice that you remembered. Yes, content based language teaching is not actually goal oriented. Okay, it is not student centered also, right? Because students are learning English without actually intending to learn English. They are learning English through different contents. Okay. The best example is, I've already given you this example, is learning of English from different subjects, right? So um, the approach is not, um, you know, this is not goal oriented. It is not targeted in the way that language learning is not the object of content based learning. Now, what happens is when a teacher chooses to teach through content based language teaching or content based instructions, uh, they can take any of the topics. Okay. Uh, Now, in there are two ways of content based teaching. One is, through the subject that is ongoing, वो academic need है उनकी, ठीक है, the object is academic. They are learning subjects, different subjects or different kind of information through mathematics, history, geography, Pakistan studies, social studies, but they are learning English also at the same time. The other thing is when when a teacher chooses to teach through content based instructions, they can take up random topics, not the topics that might be the need of the students later on their lives, right? They can ask the students to choose the topic or the content. Okay, now that really depends. The content can be chosen. There's no particular criteria of choosing content, or maybe the teacher comes up with a criteria, but what happens is that some interesting content is taken. Now that content can be chosen by the student or by the teacher. They do not have a particular linguistic uh, or non-linguistic goal in mind. They don't have to achieve anything by learning English through that content. Okay, so that content can be chosen by both the student and the teacher, and the student might choose some content that is motivating, some content that is, that is interesting, that is engaging. Okay, um, we can have interactive tasks also, or we can have interactive activities, but all of that would result in language learning. They can be used for real life situations. Content based learning can result in achieving language goals outside the classrooms or otherwise. Okay, but the goal is not actually uh, doing things in real life situation, which is dissimilar to ESP or task based language learning, or for that matter problem based learning. Okay, so that is why we say that, content based instruction is a little different, or it is in direct competition with ESP. So what happens is that some teachers of content based instructions, they choose certain activities. Okay, they choose topics for the classes that might, target specialized areas of the learners, or just those motivating topics, or those topics are only for the interest of the students. Okay, CBI courses are not discipline specific courses, right? They are not discipline centered, they are not discipline specific, and these can even be the movies or songs of English to learn the language. Okay, content can be as entertaining as choosing the movies. Now, movies have nothing to do with the real life situation, but sometimes even English language teachers also suggest you to watch English movies in order to improve your English. वो होती है content based learning. You are actually watching a movie for entertainment purposes. Your purpose is not to learn the language, but you are learning the language. You are suggested to listen to English songs to improve English, but you are actually uh, learning English, but the purpose is entertainment. Okay, so this is CBI or content based instructions. Now if you have opened your books, I have already referred to this continuum. This is on page number 20. Now this continuum starts from language to content, and starting from GTM and ending in EMI. EMI is also, this is another competing approach, English medium instructions. We have talked about that also as English medium instructions. Okay. if your books are open or if your books are not open, I would really suggest that you look at this continuum later on. It's on page 20, from language to content. Okay. It starts with GTM, and there are a lot of methods between GTM and CLT. CLT is one of the modern methods, and it should be on the right side of this continuum. Communicative language teaching, then we have content based instructions, and then we have English medium instructions. So all of this, from teaching languages in isolation to actually teaching the content. Okay. Now, what are the difficulties in CBI is that choosing the material sometimes becomes difficult. What topics to be chosen um, for CBI? Okay, content-based instructions. Sometimes there are discussions. The content can be the discussion itself that is generated in the classrooms while they are discussing some other topics. So CBI has again a lot of flexibility as far as content is concerned. Okay, that is why it is different from ESP, because ESP comes with a specific content. It is a targeted content. It is a goal oriented content. But in content based language teaching, the content can be very random. Okay, it can start from very much academic content to very much entertaining content. Okay, from essays to watch to movies and to songs and all of that, right? So there's a lot of flexibility. This is another difference between CBI and ESP, that there is flexibility in the content as far as the goal is concerned, because CBI doesn't go with the goal, so that's why. But this TBLT and ESP, since they are goal oriented, so they work with particular content. Okay, method of teaching can be different. They are flexible with that, but they have to take a particular content. The content that is being taught to the engineers cannot be taught to the doctors. This is how I would elaborate on how the content is very much specific and how the content is very much particular. But in content based instructions, the content is not particular, it is not specific, it is not targeted, it is not taught with any of the goals in mind. Okay. Now, similar is the case with EMI. uh, EMI is English medium instructions, and it is similar to content based instruction in the sense that uh, anything that is taught in English. It is not particularly that language is being taught in English, but English medium instructions, any instructions that are given in English in the classrooms whenever anything is being taught, that is EMI. Okay. Now, again, we are almost done with this. These are the two approaches, and then I would like to refer to another approach which is called as, let me check. Yeah. Uh, okay, this is also a competing approach, ESP, which is language integrated language learning, content and language integrated learning, CLIL. This is similar to content based teaching. When you integrate other subjects to teach English, okay, that is called as integrated approach. Integrate means to, what do you mean by integrate? What is integrated means?
To combine.
Yeah, to combine. So this is why I am telling you that CLIL, content and language integrated learning is similar to content based teaching because it integrates different subjects or different courses or different content in order to teach English. Okay, so uh, now we quickly look at some of the characteristics of ESP which are absolute. Whose mic is on and who's enjoying ESP at home? Someone's family is enjoying ESP while we are not. Okay, guys, uh, we are coming to the end of this chapter. I really want to complete this chapter today, and I think we will be able to do that. One thing is before we move to the absolute and variable characteristics of ESP, there is a task on page number 22, placing courses on the language content continuum. Okay, please do it on your own. We'll discuss it. Okay, before starting something newer, we'll discuss it. Okay, you do it on your own. We'll do it together afterwards. Right now, what I would like to do very, very quickly are two kinds of characteristics. Okay, one are the absolute characteristics of ESP. By absolute, we means that those are the mandatory or necessary characteristics that define ESP. The other are the variable characteristics. They may be there or they might not be there, but they would not affect ESP as such. Now, the absolute characteristics, as we started our lecture with it, that those should be absolute characteristics. The first one is that it has to be learner centered. It has to be student centered. It is designed to meet the specific needs of the learners, right? This is one thing. Uh, ESP, another absolute characteristic is that it is particular for an occupation, right? It is related to a particular discipline. Activities are designed to target that particular occupation or discipline. Okay. Other than that, all the content moves around those needs of the students. Whether you are teaching them semantics, you might be teaching them a lot of things that are part of linguistics to meet their non-linguistic needs. You will be making use of syntax. You'll be designing activities that improves their syntax, semantics, discourse, pragmatics. Okay, so you would be taking a lot of help from language and linguistics for their non-linguistic needs, but those would be very, very particular, student-centered, and goal-oriented. Okay, which is very, very different. ESP, another absolute characteristic of ESP that it is very different, almost opposite to GE, General English. We have already discussed this. Okay. How do you differentiate between GE and ESP? Very, very quickly. We have been doing the same thing again and again. GE and ESP. Yes, not Mahin this time. Someone else, please. Who is this AK Tareen? And who is this? And we have Anisa. Yes, Anisa Jaffer. We have Kazmina, Faral Sadiq, Fazila. Quickly, guys, we will be doing variable characteristics and then we are done with this. Okay, Saima, yes, again. Quickly. I've asked you this question many times in the class also. How do you differentiate between
Yes, ma'am.
yeah,
Uh, Ma'am, GE is not goal oriented, while
yeah,
ESP is goal oriented.
exactly. G is what we teach you in the classes since your school days, okay? All of whatever English is taught to you is a part of general English, right? and ESP till now hasn't been taught to you, but next semester, maybe whenever language teaching methods will be taught to you, that is very much an example of ESP actually. English for specific purposes or English for language teachers, right? Now let's come to the variable. Variable characteristic doesn't mean that these characteristics would not be there in ESP, but variable means they might or they might not be there. But if they are absent, even then the field remains ESP. Okay, ESP may be, but not necessarily restricted to the language skills only. I told you, we make use of the four basic skills, but we also try to teach metacognitive skills. Now, who is quickly telling me about metacognitive skills? This is not limited to just one skill or two. Yes. Who's telling me about the metacognitive skills? Not Saima Khan again, someone else. Can we have Ikra Salim? Yes, Ikra. Ramin is here. Nice to see her.
Um,
Ikra Salim's house is very noisy right now. Yes, Ramin.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Ma'am, metacognitive skills, it refers to the ability to think, to evaluate, or like controls our own thinking and the learning process.
Okay, what are some of the metacognitive skills?
Like planning, organizing, and
Yeah, you're right.
monitoring,
You're
maybe.
right. You're right. Um, yes, Ramin, you are right. We have more hands raised. Resham raised her hand, and I think Mukaddas also raised her hand. Yes, Mukaddas. Mukaddas, are you there? Okay. Anyway, Ramin has given us the right answer also, and she has revised something for us. So, uh, this is a part of the variable skills that we are not focusing on a single skill. We might be taking help or learning or teaching a lot of skills, not just the basic ones but metacognitive ones as well. Okay, again, because ESP is an eclectic approach, so we do not have any pre-planned methodology. We'll go to the classes, and according to the needs of the students, we'll keep on uh, changing our methodology and sometimes the material as well. Okay, so this is the variable characteristics. Other than that, there are two kinds of um, absolute and variable characteristics given in your book. One is given by Strevens, 1988, and these are similar also. This is for your knowledge and this is for your information. Otherwise, you only need to know what are the absolute characteristics without which ESP cannot exist, and what are the variable characteristics that may not be present in ESP. So one is given by Stevenson, and the other is given by Dewey Evans and St. Jones in 1998. This is part of the book. Okay. Again, Dewey also gives the same absolute characteristics, that is specific needs of the learners, and um, activities related to the discipline, and then you may take help from the language, but the goals are non-linguistic. Okay, and then again, in the variable characteristics, we have just the similar ones as given by the other researcher. Who's that? Okay. Okay, so variable characteristics are, they are designed for the uh, specific discipline, which is they are multidisciplinary, but they are basically designed for specific disciplines. Uh, Teaching situations can be specific, and if there are different methodologies, that can be variable. There can be a particular methodology that you choose, but you can. I mean, there is flexibility, but uh, this is not mandatory that you keep on choosing different methods, but different methods are available to you because you are taking up an eclectic approach. But you can go with a single method also if the needs of the students be like that. Acha, ESP is designed usually for the adult learners, okay, but it can also be uh, taught at the secondary level or at the intermediate level. How? Because while we were doing the branches of ESP, we came to know that ESP is for the academic purposes and ESP is for the occupational or the professional purposes also, right? So this is a variable characteristic that usually it is for the adult learners. Whose mic is on, guys? Please mute the mics. Who's that? Okay, so the variable characteristic is in terms of the kind of students. Those are usually adults, professionals, tertiary level. Tertiary level means the university students, but ESP can also be taught at other levels as well. Okay, so other variable characteristic can be, most ESP courses assume some basic knowledge of the language system, but they can also have an advanced knowledge or teaching language to students who already know English, but they need to know English for a particular profession, for a particular discipline, or for a particular need. Okay, so I think that's all. Then there are some research ideas that you can go through those, and we'll see if those can be actually researched on. Okay, then there are some closing reflections. These are all discussion stuff that needs another class, and would be better if we do that in the physical classes or on campus classes. Okay, I think this is all for now. For your homework, I would like you to read the whole chapter. Okay, and if you have any queries, any questions, while we will be discussing the research ideas and the reflections which are at the end of this chapter, I'll take the questions if you have any confusion relating to this. From my end, this chapter is completed. It only needs a few discussion points here and there. The rest of it, we are done. Okay. Now, um, one more thing I would like to tell you. Switch. Let me stop this recording. This recording will be, available to you in a while because the software takes a little time to compile the recording. Okay, but I'll send